A healing journey is a walk of faith we all must take in order to manifest the healing God has provided in Jesus Christ. Damon and Renee Peterson took that walk for more than a year after their son Jason developed a severe skin problem.
When he was 3 months old, he started getting the baby zits, the normal things that they get when they're passing the estrogen. And they just wouldn't go away. They just kept getting worse. And we're like, why is it getting worse? We don't understand.
And we didn't have insurance or anything, so what we were doing with the medical doctors was limited already.
Well, it didn't clear up, so that's when we took him to our family doctor. And he's like, oh, well, that's eczema, and that's a skin condition of extremely dry skin. And then what happens is they itch it because it itches, and then they get an infection.
We tried various different prescriptions, different creams and ointments and things like that. We had everybody we ran into would always comment on that. They would ask him, what's wrong with him? Did he get burned in a fire? And we'd say, no, it's eczema. And
people constantly would come up to us in the stores or wherever we were and be like, well, what's wrong with his face? You could hear little kids walking by, well, what's wrong with that little boy's face, Mommy? And we had one person when we were up in Crested Butte come up to us and tell us that you need to get your child out of the sun because he's got a very bad sunburn. And we were just like, it's not a sunburn. He's been out here for 10 minutes.
And so it was just constant, every time someone would come up with that, we would always feel like that we'd have to explain ourselves because we didn't want people thinking we were bad people, bad parents, and we didn't want them thinking that our child was a monster. He wasn't. We could tell behind the eczema that he was a cute little kid.
I also think about the people that used to come up to me and tell me, well, have you tried this and you tried that and tried this and tried that? And you get so sick of hearing it. You're like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm tired of hearing, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, you got to do that, because none of it works.
But we really wanted to see it, a supernatural healing, because the doctors kept saying that he was going to have this until puberty. And we did not want him to go through this until he was, 12, 13, 14 years old.
We were doing this for months. Every night, pray over him, wrap him in the oil, wrap him in the plastic, jammies. And he hated it. He would scream bloody murder every time we did this.
The itch so bad that he would just scratch on anything.
And that was another problem, was the itching. We had to constantly keep his fingernails clipped to where there was no fingernail, basically.
At one place, he would scratch on his face on the rug. He would just lay his face on the rug and just start scratching his face on the rug to where it would start bleeding. And we'd have to get the OxyClean to get the blood out of the rug.
Oh, I was putting him down for a nap. And you know how kids cry when you put them down for a nap because they don't want to go for a nap. And so, my practice is you let them cry, they go to sleep. Well, so I did that. And so I went to check on him after he had stopped crying, and he was asleep in a pool of blood because he had scratched his face so hard that he just started bleeding.
Well, we were trying to do whatever we could to learn how to manifest his healing. And we were using all kinds of materials from Andrew to learn that. And at the same time, we were just like, well, why should Jason suffer but while we're learning this? This is not fair for him.
Maybe we're not believing hard enough. Maybe we don't have enough faith. What is wrong with us that is not working? Damon and I would talk about it at night when we'd go to bed. We'd be like, what's the deal? Why isn't this working? We know that in the spiritual realm, he's healed. Why can't we get it to manifest? And we listened to Andrew's tapes. You've already got it. God wants you well. Countless others. A believer's authority. And
so we would just, we would do everything we could. And, it's like we're trying to balance the whole thing of, I don't want to get into the works thing. It's like, God, I've done this, this, and this. Why isn't he healed yet? Because that's putting the blame back on God, and that wasn't right. And at the same time, it was like, we still need to stand fast and stand strong. And it was really like the Sabbath rest teaching was what's helping us a lot. And Andrew reiterated that when I told him, I was like, everything we were doing is like, what are we doing wrong? We got to be doing something wrong. And if there's anything you can help us. And he says, don't worry about what you're doing wrong. Don't think about what you're doing wrong. Just trust and rest in God. And so that's what we were doing, or trying to do.
Now the whole since Jason was born, he'd had really cold hands and feet. They were always blue, and we had asked the doctors is it normal for his hands to be blue? And they said, oh, well, some babies are just like that. And it never went away. I mean, to that day, he'd still had cold hands. I mean, they were really blue and purplish in color.
And he would even, when he got old enough to where he could crawl and be mischievous, he would, come and put his hands on Mommy's back or on her legs to make her jump and squeal because he didn't like his cold hands on him. That's how cold his hands were and his feet. And so, it was just significant to the touch, you could tell. I was at home in the driveway sitting in my chair and watching the kids just ride their bikes around the driveway. And I was just praying in tongues because I was just completely at my wit's end. I didn't know what else to do. I was basically at the end of myself. So I just was praying in tongues for Jason. And then I just felt impressed to pray for his heart. So I immediately just spoke to his heart and commanded his heart to be the way God designed it to be when it was created. And I didn't think anything of it at that point. Just let it go. I just spoke it, and then that was it.
When Damon, had God tell him to pray over his heart, it's like that was the missing ingredient. We had no idea he had trouble with his heart. I mean, it makes sense now because his hands and his feet were constantly cold, but none of the doctors ever picked up on it.
And then the next day, when I came home from work, I went in to sit down in the kitchen to eat dinner, and Jason was already in his high chair, and he was barefoot. I reached to grab his feet, to play with his feet, just kind of like, hey, tiger, and when I touched his feet, they were like really warm. And so I asked Renee, I was like, has he been wearing socks all day and just now took them off?
I said, no, he hasn't had socks on all day long.
I'm like, well, feel his feet. His feet are like super warm.
And I was like, well, that's unusual.
And so then I grabbed his hands, and his hands were super warm too. And she came over and did it too. It's like, wow, that's like, at first, Jason's feet and hands are warm. And then after that was the moment we saw the progressive, until it was completely healed. Within 1 week, it was completely gone.
He was like a brand new boy. We'd seen him for the first time since he was 3 months old, with a clear face, a clear complexion. The spots on his skin, they were disappearing. And we were just like, we have a new kid. It was amazing. And he was happy.
And I have no idea what the medical science is on this, but my impression was that his heart, something was wrong with his heart that was not processing the medicine that he was getting for the infection, or something was not causing, his circulation wasn't the way it should be.
Because that's basically what you saw was the infection of the skin, because it would get scratched, it would bleed, and it would get infected. And so that's basically what everybody was seeing, was the infection.
And I think that's what caused his hands and feet to be cold, because he wasn't getting proper circulation of some sort. And then when God told me to speak to his heart, and God healed his heart, then his heart was able to get the proper circulation to his extremities.
So, that was just the missing ingredient. We weren't praying over the right thing. We needed to pray over that one area.
We hope you've been encouraged by Jason's miracle and the Peterson family's healing journey. Whatever you're praying for in your life, we want to remind you to keep your focus on God's love for you. Trust in God and His goodness will produce peace and rest as you continue your journey.